When you're ready to begin lacing the shape, thread your needle and then knot the thread onto the needle by making a loop to the right or to the left, and like that, and then take the end of the loop through, take the end of the thread through the loop and simply just tighten that little hitch. Collapse it to the bottom of the needle and that'll help so that your needle, your thread doesn't come undone while you're working, and you have to rethread your needle every 5 seconds. At the end of the thread, just tie a barrel knot. So make a loop, take the end of the thread twice through the loop, and pull the knot tight. That's now nice. Okay. So the first stitch that you're going to make on your lace is always the densest one, so that you have enough space to attach the thread to the trace. So that is the needle lace cloth stitch. So you want the needle to come out on the left side because you're going to work to the right. So bring out the needle from the back to the front on the left side, but a little bit away from where you want to start, because you're also going to wrap the thread around the trace line a couple of times. That wrap is going to keep it in place after you've sewn the outline like I did here. So these final outline stitches are going to keep the thread in place and not the knot. The knot is temporary. It's going to be cut off right at the end when you separate the layers by cutting between the couching threads. Okay, so bring the needle to the front, a little bit away from where you want to start, so that you have enough room to whip the thread around the trace line. Three, 4, or 5 stitches should be fine. And okay, now the thread is in the left corner and we're ready to start the buttonhole stitches. Okay, to hold the pattern comfortably, you can maybe fold it down a little bit, wrap it around your left index finger, and use your middle finger to hold the thread in place. The lace, the part of the thread that is attached to the lace in place. Okay, the buttonhole stitch, hold the needle as if you're holding a cigarette. You can use your thumbnail as a little anvil. Bring the needle underneath the trace and over the lace thread. So the lace thread is under the needle. These stitches can be pulled fairly tight. So it makes a little loop. So under the trace, over the thread. Okay, at the end of the row, wrap the thread around the trace thread, just with a stitch or two. If yeah, later on you'll have to wrap a little bit higher if you want to make a net stitch on the way back, but because we're just returning the thread back to the beginning in a straight line like that, we're going to wrap it up just with one stitch so that it's just one thread width higher. Do the same on the other side. So you're just working in one, making stitches in one direction from left to right, and it's like a typewriter returning with a long line to be able to begin again. So the shape is quite small, so just one stitch around is fine. Now you need to bring the needle in through the loop of the first stitch that you made, and underneath the returning thread, I'm catching the plastic of my pattern, underneath the returning thread and over the lace thread. Okay, through the big loop of the previous stitch, underneath the returning thread and over the lace thread, the end of the working thread that is attached to the lace. Good. At the end of the row, you can do the same. Just take one stitch around the trace thread, one or two. Space the returning thread. Don't pull too tight. And then continue. Buttonhole stitches through the big loop of the previous row, underneath the returning thread, over the lace thread. if you begin to run out of thread and you need to attach a new one, just do that same wraparound method first. For instance, let's say this was beginning to become a little bit uncomfortably short. I just wrap the thread around the trace outline a couple of times. Now, it doesn't matter if you start building up the outline quite thick, because you're going to oversew it with a core, so you actually want that outline to be thick, so it doesn't matter if you add more threads to it in this way. Then take the needle to the back and then just secure it with a back stitch or two so that it doesn't come undone while you're working. You can fill in the shape in straight lines, or you can also start working in short rows to create more rhythm and direction and curves. So this part was worked with a straight line back, long return, straight line back, long return. Buttonholed up, and then a short return, a short row, by bringing the returning thread back into the middle of the row and then starting to change the direction of the work a little bit, and then taking a longer return thread, longer return thread, longer return thread, short row, long row, long row. Let me draw it out just to make sure that you understand this. Say you have a shape and you begin your buttonhole stitches. And you bring a returning thread back, make your buttonhole stitches. Now, a short row means that you bring the returning thread back and loop it through the middle of the previous row, or somewhere over there, just to start changing the direction of the work. Buttonhole stitching back, short row, short row, short row, short row. And then, that's how you begin to get curves and rhythm. So every now and again, you might want to take a longer row back again. And then begin the short rows again. Maybe every now and again begin with a long row again. Nice area to take a long row again. Short row, short row. And maybe just to close up the shape, take a couple of long normal rows. Now you'd have to take the thread to the middle of the row to make that final, close that shape, and then whip the two together. Take the thread to the back. Or just to be Yeah, you could also just whip around the lace to the edge and wrap it around the trace a couple of bits, a couple of times. Just for a more dynamic shape. And you can plan that out carefully. For instance, if you want a leaf shape. You can work your rose like that on the one side and then straight on the other side. And then you'd get a cloth stitch that is just a little bit more dynamic than just a straight fill in. Yeah, try out different arrangements and try to fill in different shapes in different ways. Also try out different thicknesses of thread and different colors. The needle lace cloth stitch is the densest stitch that you have, so this is a very important one to create contrast and a sharp shape that'll stand out. Have fun.